I want you to think about the most dangerous feeling in your career. It isn't stress. It isn't burnout. It isn't even imposter syndrome. The most dangerous feeling is satisfaction. It's that warm glow you get when you finally clear your inbox. It's the dopamine hit when you deploy the code without errors. It's the relief of hitting the quarterly sales target exactly as planned. We are biologically wired to love that feeling. We love implementation correctness. Think about that word, implementation correctness. It means that we did the correct thing. We love it because it means we did exactly what we were told. We built the right thing. If you think about it from a psychoanalytical perspective, we're pleasing our caretakers, our mothers, our fathers. We're doing what they want us to do. And there's nothing more important for survival when it comes to instinctive perspective than doing what authority requires out of us. So we're wired for implementation correctness. At least that's my opinion. But here's the hard truth, is that no one puts in a job description, in a world that never stops changing, done is a lie. Whatever OKRs you have, whatever KPIs you have, they don't really matter that much anymore. Software systems and business strategies, they're operating in environments that evolve continuously. And they're changing in a paradigmatic way, which means that the very purpose of the business is changing. And just to be a little bit specific, if we think about a translation agency, for instance, for a long time, the business of a translation agency was very clear. They would grab documents from their clients and they would focus a lot on processes and ISO norms and making sure that the project managers knew the SOPs and making sure that they had very strict, rigorous vendor selection and making sure that they were checking all of the boxes to make sure that everything was following the right process so that it went to the right translator, so that they used the right tools, so that it went to the right reviewer, that it went through the right checks, so that when it was delivered, there was a very high probability of implementation correctness. And implementation correctness was hard. It was so hard. Anything could go wrong. The wrong tool could be used. The wrong translator could be used. The reviewer could review it in the wrong way. Misunderstandings could happen. So much was left for human subjectivity. Project managers could drop the ball. Implementation correctness was really hard. And I'm not talking about that long ago. We're talking about maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Implementation correctness was very, very hard. But fast forward to 2026, and a translation agency that does the same thing, that focuses on implementation correctness, they're done. They're done. They don't have a business model anymore because now they're competing with the likes of ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc. They're competing with something that's instant, something that maybe not perfect, but is 85% there, 90% there. Doesn't matter how much it is. It's creating the illusion of something that's instant on the hand of the users. It's also very simple to create mock-ups. If you leave the translation agency scenario for just 1 second, it's very simple to create implementation correctness in software engineering as well. I can pretend to write code even though I don't. I can pretend to know about a subject matter even though I don't. So the implementation correctness is something that becomes simpler and simpler to emulate, even though it's not entirely there. But going back again to the translation agency example, implementation correctness by itself is a given. It's given that the translation has to be great. It's given that it has to be fast. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you charge in ways that are compatible for that? Because when implementation correctness was something so hard, you could charge a lot for that. But as implementation correctness becomes easier and easier and easier, what you can charge or how much it's appreciated goes down and down and down. And by the way, just a quick parenthesis here. Everything that I'm saying in this video, I've learned from Enrique, our CTO, and Vanilson, our director of software engineering, because they have been the people over the past 10 years that have showed me how to leave the mechanistical behavior of my business framework and understand a little bit more of what I'm showing you today, which is system designs thinking. And that's what we're going into. Software, if you're a senior engineer, for instance, not going into development, and you built a perfect, rigid architecture that can't adapt to next month's market shift, you didn't succeed. It's like you built a technical straitjacket, right? Maybe there was implementation correctness, but that's not what we're looking for. If you're an executive and you executed a 5-year strategy perfectly, but the customer's problem changed in year 2, you didn't win. It's like you steered the ship off a cliff with perfect precision, right? There's no real benefit in that. This is what we call the execution trap. We focus so hard on the task, the implementation, that we become blind to the value, right? It's all about delivering, committing the code, making the sale, solving the ticket. And we all, as we do that, it's like we add blinders to our vision perspective. So we lose our peripheral capabilities. We lose our ability to look up and down. We lose our ability to turn around. We lose our ability to dynamically move through problems, right? And why is this so urgent right now? Because we're entering in this era where implementation is easy. It's never been easier. Solving defined problems is exactly what machines do best. If your value comes from taking a requirement and implementing it correctly, you are in a race you cannot win. I'm going to repeat that. If you and your value comes from taking a requirement and implementing it correctly, doesn't matter in whatever field you're in, you are in a race you cannot win. Models will continue to get better, which means, and even if they don't get better at the speed people claim them to be, they will continue to evolve for sure. And as they continue to evolve, everything that is about requirement deliverable is more easily accomplished by a model than it is by a human. It's just a matter of specializing and tuning and training, but it is, from a theoretical perspective, easier. So if your job is just writing the code for the spec, AI can do that. If your job is just processing the data for the report, AI can do that. When you work on features, components, and implementation correctness, you're optimizing for the very things that can be automated. You're making yourself interchangeable. It's like digging your own hole. With every ticket that gets solved, with every code that gets committed, you're digging a little bit more of your own hole. And in my opinion, and this is again just my opinion, organizations will tend to get smaller, more dynamic, and more focused on people who can work at a system design's thinking level. And the moment you stop understanding the system and just fix the code or the process without grasping the why, your autonomy, your ownership are gone. You become a cog, and cogs are replaceable. Which brings us to the break the machine. I mean, a lot of people question, why do you use the break the machine slogan in BureauWorks? That is precisely why. Break the machine is a statement of commitment towards design thinking. If we're just a cog in the machine, if we're just a part of something that's grinding us, and we're not having ownership over our actions, not only are we replaceable, but we are next in line to become valueless. And in my opinion, we are about a rebellion. We are about rebelling towards this oblivion of authorship. We're quite the opposite. We have to create room for maximum human authorship. When the component, for instance, if we think about the lean iceberg model, right? The component that's visible, it's above the water. It's the user workflow, it's the context of use. But the misaligned assumptions, they're all under the water, if you think about the iceberg metaphor. So how do we escape, right? We have to stop falling into the trap of solution first thinking, which is what I know that I can speak for myself. I know that I am wired for solution first thinking. We're not selling enough. We have to sell more. We're not shipping enough code. We have to do more. Whatever's not working, we have to fix, right? That's my gut instinct. I need to fix whatever problem is in front of me, as opposed to taking a step back and thinking about the design, thinking about the actual problem that we're trying to solve. And this is exactly what happens when high performers jump straight to fix before defining the pain. We see a problem and we say, just change the component. And that also has to do with another component of human nature. It's very hard I know I can speak for myself, it's very hard for me to sit with pain. Pain is horrible, right? I want to escape pain. That's the entire premise of Western civilizations, pain avoidance, right? Pain sucks. I don't know anybody who really likes it unless they're a sadist or a masochist, but even then, it's uncomfortable. The pleasure is coming from the discomfort. What's really happening here is we need to become more comfortable with the pain. Now, the component is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a symptom, not the root cause. The reality is hidden below the surface, beneath the user workflow, beneath the context of use, and beneath the misaligned assumptions. When you just execute the project, you're applying a symptom-based fix. You're not optimizing for delivery, not optimizing for value. In my opinion, to be relevant, you need to reframe the work. You need to shift the focus from what to change to why users struggle. If you think less about the what's and more about the whys, that's a really good first step. And what I really want to emphasize here is if you get an entire team, no matter how small. It could be 5 people, could be 10 people, could be 100 people. But if you get an entire group of people who are thinking at this level, thinking why users struggle as opposed to thinking what they need to change, and you put these people, these different teams on vectors, you're going to see how they're going to deviate so significantly over time. Because the whys are so much more important, they're so much harder. And they get us to answer so much more difficult questions. And often the whys lead us to even more questions than answers. But it's those questions precisely that make us produce things that matter, right? So we love efficiency. We love high velocity teams. But efficiency, could be just speed. It measures how fast you're moving. It just doesn't measure where you are going. And that's what's so important, right? We're in a world that's so obsessed about the amount of features that are shipped, about the amount of progress that was delivered, the amount of sales that was delivered, whatever measurable component we want more of. We always want to maximize for magnitude. But we're talking about something different. We're talking about optimizing for direction. We're saying that it's maybe better to take 1 step in the right direction than taking 10 steps in the wrong direction. And it's really hard right now because right and wrong in terms of directions, I'm talking about right and wrong from a moral perspective. I'm talking about from a business efficiency perspective. Right and wrong, in my opinion, have never been less clear because the landscape is changing very, very quickly. Now, if you think about it from, for instance, a DevOps and AI, for instance, it increases speed. That's great. Design thinking ensures direction. And because speed is so much higher because of AI, right? We can code faster. We can write faster. We can research faster. I believe it's hard to disagree with that. I'm not saying that it's better. It's definitely faster. Design thinking is precisely what ensures direction. If we don't have the right design thinking in place, it's like driving a very, very fast car with a very, very loose steering wheel. It's not a good recipe, right? You're likely not to arrive at your destination, not to mention survive. So traditional work, it focuses on output success, requirements implemented. Evolutionary work, which is what we're talking about, focuses on outcomes, focuses on success. It's the number of problems that are efficiently solved. And again, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2. It could be a single problem, but if it's really efficiently solved at its root, that carries so much value, right? If you're running at 100 miles per hour in the wrong direction, you aren't a high performer, you become a liability. Machines, they provide the velocity, but we need to provide the direction. I know that this sounds daunting, but in my opinion, it's super liberating. When we stop obsessing over implementation correctness, we gain the freedom to be an architect of evolution. And for me, I can speak for myself. This is scary, super, super scary, because even my own sense of self-worth is based on the number of things that I delivered. If I have a very busy day and I respond to 10 emails and I close 3 deals and I get into X number of calls and I make great presentations, that increases my dopamine. That increases my perception of self-worth. That's awesome. But if I have a day where I do very little, at least at the surface, I feel useless. I feel worthless. It's very hard for me to sit with that. So when we're talking about system design thinking, my opinion, we're actually changing my sense of self-worth, because now my self-worth isn't coming from the number of boxes that I ticked. Now my self-worth is coming from the quality of problems that I solved. It's coming from the direction that I'm setting. It's coming from things that are very hard to put into tangible terms. And the primary engineering challenge is preventing change from propagating across the entire system. If we build a rigid system, every change feels like rework. But if we build an adaptive system, change is just evolution. This applies to my career, to your career too. So for instance, instead of being the person who fixes the bug, I want to be the person who redesigns the flow. Instead of handling requests like patches, for instance, why don't I treat them like signals for redesign? This is where my creative freedom lives, right? True innovation, in my opinion, happens in the intersection of desirability, which is what do people actually need, feasibility, which is what can we actually do, and visibility, which is what's actually driving the business. Machines, they can check feasibility, but they struggle with desirability and viability. That's my domain. That's your domain. That's our domain, right? And this embodiment over these decisions. So this is my challenge for myself. It's about not building, and let's say from an engineering perspective, it's not building code. Start solving problems. Again, you can apply this to any area. Stop focus on selling. Start focus on solving problems. Stop focusing on just messaging. start solving problems, and not just otherworldly problems or world-changing problems, but the actual problems that you have. Because once you start looking at the problems, at least for me, I realize that there's so many different tools available, so many different options available. It's like I have to relearn my entire set of possibilities. And it's about not waiting for the perfect instructions. It's about validating first, implementing second. Again, the machine can handle a lot of the implementation. It can handle the correctness. Just as a very simple example, the machine can spell correct and spell check way better than I could ever could. But my job is to ensure that we are building the right thing, not just building the thing right. That's super important, right? We're building the right thing, not just the thing right. And this is how we stay relevant. This is how we find creative freedom. And it's how we evolve. That's my challenge for myself for 2026, is to really take on this system design thinking that I've been learning and live by it, to sit with the discomfort that I experience when I focus and spend more time on wondering about the whys and less time on just delivering things that make me feel good. Thanks so much for watching. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments below. If I'm speaking a bunch of mumbo jumbo, which is probably the case, let me know, and look forward to the next time. Take care.